Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Zdenek's English podcast. It's been a while since I recorded an episode, and it's been a while since I talked to Jack. Hi, Jack. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me here again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, how long has it been since we talked last time?
A couple of years, probably 1 or 2 years, I think.
Probably
Been a
2 years
while,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while. A lot has changed in our lives. I'm in Vietnam now. How about you? Where
Um,
I,
I'm in Winchester. We moved here about 3 years ago. Beautiful. It's not real.
so
Uh,
it's a countryside basically. Yeah.
yeah. It's very sort of it's not as multicultural as I would like,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very calm, very relaxed, very sort of the population's just about right, and it's a good
Yeah.
antidote to London, really. I was in London for about 17 years, so people say you can't tire of London. You can, and I did. So it's nice to be out of it,
Ju-
really.
just to remind our listeners, basically, we met at Speak Up London, which was the language school we both worked for right
We did.
before right before the COVID became a
Yeah.
thing, and then I decided to leave the UK, and I think you still work for the language school, don't you?
I do bits and bobs. I'm doing some online stuff. Um,
Right,
Starting next week, actually.
remote
Yeah.
remote
Mm,
teaching,
yeah.
basically. Yeah, okay, cool. And so to remind you guys, Jack has featured before, as I said, and he was in episode 354 called Lucid Jack. You are a musician, you are an English teacher, you are a musician, and a board games enthusiast. And I think all these three things kind of come together, and we're definitely going
Yeah.
to mention it. But so last time, just to remind our listeners, there was a song called Drive, and it was
Mm.
very memorable. We even played it on the podcast. So
You did?
like
Yeah, yeah.
I I I think I even like played it two more times after that or something like that. But I know people were getting back to me. They really liked the tune. It was very
Yeah,
it
your
is a
audience were really nice, by the way. They were really sweet about that. Yeah,
no,
so
it's
we were in a band called Lucid Jake, and it's
yeah.
our sort of 80s uh, sound that we wanted to do for a few years, and then finally we just said, right, let's just do it. So yeah, I'm pleased with how that turned out. Actually, I'm usually not happy with anything that I make, but that those four songs were.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually. I mean, it was. They were put together with a scalpel. Really, the amount of work that went into those, and I'm very happy with how they came out. Actually, I don't. When people put them on, I don't kind of curl up into a ball, which is quite common when you hear your own music. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the same with podcasts, to be honest. When you hear your own voice,
yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
horrible.
but I have to say it's a very catchy tune, and I personally like it a lot. I think others liked it too. And so you can
Oh,
still find
thanks.
it. Obviously, guys, Jack has got a YouTube channel. I think it's called Lucid Jake, right?
Lucid
Uh,
Jake, yeah,
Lucid Jake, so you can find it there. It's my favorite song called Drive, but I know there will be more as well.
yeah. There's a couple more, yeah, yeah, yeah. But we
Yeah.
haven't we haven't been doing as much of that. Actually, my time has been taken up with what we're going to talk about today. But
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Spoiler alert: there is more to Jack, and it's. I think it's the first time you mentioned it to me was maybe I don't know a few months ago, and I was
Mhm.
actually quite surprised. I wasn't surprised, and I was surprised. I was surprised that your life took such a different sort of not life like the music life took such a different direction. That's something
Mhm.
I'm surprised about. But then
Mhm.
when you told me what it was, it's spoiler alert. It's something to do with board games. Then I
Yeah,
was like, well, it actually makes sense, doesn't it?
it does. It does. So, I the first board game that I played, not being a child, I mean, the one that I played when I was an adult was Zombies, which I still love.
You told
And
me about it. I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
yeah, and the first thing I did, my mate set it up on the floor. We had it on the floor because it was, it spreads the board spreads out as you play. And I said, wait, I'll put on some music, and without thinking, I love music and I love soundtrack, film soundtracks and TV
Yeah.
soundtracks. So the first thing I put on the soundtrack was it was Night of the Living Dead, which is a great soundtrack for George Romero's movie 1967,
This is
I think it is.
zombie apocalypse kind of movie. Yeah.
It's amazing, yeah. So we put that on, and since then I've never not done it. I've always had music playing when I play
Really?
board games and when I have
So,
friends every single time.
so
Yeah.
hang on. So there must be some people who are not into that kind of thing, though. So have you always convinced your mates to have the music on? Because
Yeah, it's become a bit of a thing actually. So
okay,
it's become expected. So we did we last Halloween. I actually did a Cluedo board game night. So I sent everyone their characters, and they had to dress up as their character, arrive at the mansion, which is my house, which is anything but a mansion. And we had the room and we had candles, and everyone had their costumes on, and then we played Cluedo, and we had the music from Clue, the film Clue,
Hmm,
which is a comedy of Cluedo, and the music
right.
works very well. It's kind of a bit plinky plonky, and it's a bit of intrigue in there and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've become a bit famous for it, or infamous, depending on who you're talking
Well,
to, basically.
I'm because as you know very well, I'm pretty much into board games like you are, and even here in
To a more
Vietnam,
disturbing level, yeah.
I,
Or
I,
maybe not actually. I think
I
now I
think
may have overtaken you.
yeah, I don't know. I think we are just a little bit different as well in a way, right? We just might play slightly different games, and
Mm.
so I have got my game group here as well in Da
Oh,
Nang. It
cool.
didn't take very long to make one.
Hi, I am Serkan. I like the Achiever's Chamber because it helps you practice whenever you want.
For more information about the Achievers Chamber, go to teachersdenek.com. So I have got my game group here as well in Da Nang.
Oh,
It
cool.
didn't take very long to make one, and yeah, so I
So
can't
you got
imagine.
local people involved.
I do,
That's great.
but not only local people. It kind of started with a few expats, yeah, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, there are a lot of expats in the area that I'm in, basically. So, and
Mm.
then you're right, I also have a few local people involved, so it's like a bigger group. It's
That's
yeah,
fantastic. You like social deduction games, don't you? And sort of
uh, I
interactive, talky.
I do, but it also comes down to the fact that that often when I'm trying to get people into the hobby, they seem to like the social deduction the most. I don't know what it is about them. I guess they are easy to get into.
There's less mechanics involved, and it's more about
Yeah,
using the brain and the social stuff. And yeah, I think that is the worst thing about doing board games is teaching a rule. So I've actually kind of I've sort of got a technique of drip feeding mechanics to people, because the best games have generally more mechanics, in my opinion, because there's more stuff to do. So you have to kind of learn how to maybe keep certain abilities or things away from the player for the
yeah.
first 2 or 3 rounds, and then you go, all right, now we're going to open it up, and now you can do this way, this and that.
Exactly. There's time for it,
Yeah.
because if you overwhelm people, you will
Mm,
intimidate them. They won't enjoy themselves.
no,
And
no.
it's so important, that first impression, that matters
Oh,
so much.
it's
You could even
and
like ruin someone's, like, if imagine
life.
almost not life, but
Yeah,
sort of their attitude. You could
yeah,
affect their attitude, right,
I
by
agree.
that one bad game, and they might not like board games, or
Mm,
if even if you there's someone who just is not, in board games you have all sorts of people, yeah, people
you
who
do.
should never play board games, and it really matters, doesn't it? Like, who you play with, it's the most important thing. It's more important than the game itself, in my opinion.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I think that first play is massively important, because if they don't get that rush, it's a bit like a first date. If it's a disaster, it really puts pressure on the next one. There's a reluctance after it, really.
You're right.
So I think what I tend to do, it's a bit sneaky, but I try to educate people in certain disciplines before we do the big one, the big game that uses all of it. So, for example, you might want to play, I don't know, Ultimate Werewolf or something for social
Yeah.
deduction, and then you might want to play Love Letters for hand management, and then you might want to play, if it's so different fighting mechanics, you might want to play something else, and eventually you build their skill level up so that you have references to say, oh, well, when we played that, it's exactly like that with just this little difference, and then they're like, oh, okay. But I think you have to put in the groundwork,
Yeah.
and to get their confidence up, because you're right, otherwise it's just horrible, and it's not fun for the person running the game either, because they're just putting out
Oh
fires
my.
really, rather
Oh
than
my God. Yeah, you have no idea. I've been through a lot here, by the way. Yeah? I've met some amazing people. I've met some arseholes as well, or some
yeah.
people that just maybe are not arseholes, but they just don't work as players of board games, or
Yeah.
I am not compatible with them, because the thing is, like, I respect games a lot, and I want people to follow the rules, to take it serious, and they, what what they think about me is probably that I take it too seriously and that I'm not fun. Yeah, that's the thing, because they don't understand, like, their definition of fun is different from mine, probably. Yeah? So I have fun from playing the game, from the mechanics, from the
Yeah.
interaction inside the game, whereas they might sort of,
I think I get exactly what you mean. I mean, because I love thematic stuff with sort of, not stories, but stories you make yourself, and I get very into characters and stuff, like, which
yeah.
came massively important with the soundtrack. But I don't like it when people just say, oh, whatever, and they'll just do something stupid just to make it funny.
Mm,
I think that can
yeah.
be annoying, and I hate with a passion people who bend cards and
Although,
damage
well,
the.
don't get me started on that. I go mad
It's
when that
it's
happens.
knee to the face offensive. It's so horrible. I said it's like me coming round to your home with like muddy shoes and then just walking all over your
Yeah.
carpet and then just setting fire to it anyway, because you can't even fix those mistakes once it's bent or damaged, or. So a guy,
Yeah.
friend of mine, came round to play Nemesis, and he knows how serious I am about this sort of thing. He's a great guy, I love him. But he came round, he's from Brazil, and he
Yeah.
picked up one of the miniatures, and he said, "What's this?" And he just dropped down the floor and it broke. And he
Oh,
looked at me like, because I guess I can be a little intimidating sometimes, and he was just like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Don't worry about it." Like, he's such a nice guy. I was like, "Leave it, don't
yeah.
worry." We then played the best game of Nemesis I've ever played. Probably the best gaming night of my life. Actually, it was just amazing. And then a couple of months later, he came into the pub and he gave me this little box, and then inside were two of the mini. But he'd actually like contacted Awaken Realms, the company, and got them to send him some replicas to give to me. So it
That's
was
very
worth
nice.
it, because
Yeah.
it was a great,
Yeah. Yeah.
greatest game night in my life. So
Yeah. Oh, I guess my point is, it's never easy, and you really have to play with the right people, and that
you
might
do.
take a while for you to build that group as well. I was trying to do something at Speak Up London as well with the board games club. It wasn't that easy because of the nature of the language school. People come and go. There is a lot of fluctuation.
It's
It's
pretty transient. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very, very, very different, right? So
Mm,
anyway, Jack, today you have
mm,
come here to talk about so your new sort of project, and
yeah.
I think it's really interesting. So where do we start? Where do we start?
It's a board game soundtrack,
Board game
which is
soundtrack.
yeah,
Hmm. So
yeah.
you've
So
already sort of given us some foreshadowing, yeah. So
mm,
yeah,
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
It's basically like, people say, "Oh, what is it?" And it's basically like any soundtrack, a film or a video game or a TV show.
Yeah.
It is, but it is the incidental underscoring of the world and the game that you're playing. Um,
So
so
so wait. So what's the name of the board game? If that's not.
the board game is actually, I got my copy a couple of days ago. It was a Kickstarter.
It was a Kickstarter.
It was
Okay.
a Kickstarter, yeah. So, but it is coming. It is going to retail,
Oh, great.
but it is
Great.
called. It's unbelievable. I'm biased, obviously I'm biased, but
Of course.
so it's called Damnation, the Gothic Game. I don't know if you can see
Damnation,
that
the
there.
Gothic Game. So that looks like a very that looks like a very strong theme. That's my first impression. Very dark, dark theme.
Bleeds theme. It bleeds theme. So yeah, it is.
But it's like demon. So what's the theme
Gothic.
then?
So basically, it was a remake. It's a reinterpretation of a game called the Gothic Game, which was made by a couple of guys who wanted to do a death match in a board game where you just kill each other and then whatever's the last person wins.
Yeah.
So the way they did it was they set up this board and they had different rooms. You go into different rooms and you pick up items in the form of cards, and those cards will give you weapons or curses or whatever. And it's quite funny. You get like a sword or like a noose or poison or something like that. Or maybe you pick up something bad, a curse or an event, like a werewolf jumps out and rips your hand off or whatever. So you go around the castle and you pick up cards. There's a loot mechanic then.
Yeah.
You build your hand, and then you start hunting each other.
You build your hand. So is it deck builder a little bit or not?
It's a board with a map of the castle, and you have your little mini.
But you say you build your hand. So is it a deck builder? You know the mechanic.
It has deck building mechanics in it.
Because it's one of my favorite mechanics. I even discovered one game called Clank, which I didn't know before.
I've heard of it. Yeah,
it's very, very good actually. So I recommend that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've never really been into. For me, cards. I need to see the action. However, there's one card game called Vampire Empire, which is brilliant. It is it's a hidden traitor game for just 2 people, and it is brilliant. It is so good. I'll tell you about it maybe another time, but it is brilliant, and that is all card based. But basically, you go around, you collect your things, you build up.
So your game now, the game that you're making.
Yeah. Sorry, in Damnation.
So can you please tell us? So why don't we leave a comment? Can you write a comment and I will show it on screen.
Comment. How do I do this?
Top right corner.
Yeah, I got on comments.
And then you just write a comment, and I can put it up.
It doesn't
let you. Maybe
me do it. No.
Okay. Well, can you send it to me in private chat then? There's a private chat as well.
Sure.
This must be very exciting for you listeners. I know it's a bit of.
You mean the name of the game that you want?
No, the what we are doing now. We just want to show. Yeah, I mean the name of the game. We just want to show the name of the game.
Yeah.
To the YouTube people, because this podcast is also on YouTube. So if you are a listener, why not subscribe to Teach Zdenek YouTube channel? You might even see me and Jack, especially Jack.
I would want to do that.
You might see him on screen. So this is the name of the game, Damnation, the Gothic Game. Sounds. I mean, the title itself sort of tells you what it is going to be about. So, so you mentioned that this is a deathmatch kind of game. Does that mean it's not co-op? It's everyone is
against everybody. Yeah,
everyone is against everybody. And one more question: so is there elimination in the game then? Like when someone dies, are they out of the game or not?
In the original, there was, and Chris Rees, who is the designer of the new one, this Damnation, the Gothic Game, he was like, "Well, we can't have that because it just is depressing for if you die. But you need the tension, so you need to die, but you need to still be in the game." And so what they came up with is called. This is brilliant. It's called the Haunt, and it's where you become a ghost, and you take tarot cards, and there are 9, and 3 of them have the number 6 on them. And if you get 666 as you lay them out, then you can come back. But if you don't get 666, you get other kind of cards that have words on them like death or revenge or something. And it means that you can influence the people in the game.
And is this then RNG? Is this luck based? Is this luck based? No. So it's
push your luck on that.
I love it. That sounds.
But there is strategy. There is strategy because then you can choose: do I want to risk taking another one? Do I want to keep my hand and influence who's on the board because you haunt the castle.
Because they are playing against you ultimately. So you're a ghost, but you're still that player, and you might
And
come back to life and
yeah,
then win the game, because you can't win as the ghost, I assume.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Sounds
exactly
like
right.
this game sounds like a lot of fun. I already want to play it, Jack.
Brilliant.
Now that I
Brilliant.
know that you also made a soundtrack to it, but I have to wait for the retail, and also, it's super expensive to have it sent here in Vietnam. It's extremely the shipping itself is usually the same price as the similar price as the game itself. So that's why,
It's
like,
miserable.
it's really, really depressing. It's maybe as depressing as the theme of the game.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating game, and there's fight mechanics, and there's traps on the board, and there's a lot of even the movement itself is tactical. Each characters have their own abilities, and you can. It's beautifully illustrated. That was
So it's like
what
a
really sucked me in.
heavier game. Let's say heavier. It takes more than 2 hours to play, or
An hour and a half, but it's the learning curve that is the difficulty. It's satisfying when you learn it, but it is a lot to take in at first.
yeah.
But it's great,
How many people can play it then?
2 to 8.
8? Oh my
Yeah,
god, Jack!
I wouldn't play it with 8. I wouldn't. I think
But
it's
I
too
love
much
games
downtime.
that go up to a lot of people, because I like large game groups. So
Well, maybe it will work. I think so long as, because the thing is, there is a lot of thinking.
yeah,
Because it's all mitigation. It's all, can I change my dice roll? Does my character have the ability to re-roll? Do my cards influence the dice? What about my attack? Do they have a defense for
yeah.
it? All this kind of thing. And so downtime may actually be a plus in this game because of the cerebral sort of angle to it.
But actually, like, if it's 8 players, that everybody has their turn, that's the
Yeah,
issue. Like, because I tried to make a game, and that was partially the problem of my game, actually. You
downtime.
know, yeah, absolutely, but not the only one. But yeah, it was one of the issues.
If you were all amazing at it and you knew everything about it, I would play with 8. But it's finding
It's
8
not.
people who will know
To
everything
be
about it.
honest, I know people. I'm not gonna name anyone, but in my new game group, doesn't matter how good they are at the game, they just take long turns, because that's the kind of person they are. We
It's
love
not
them.
acceptable.
We
You need
love
a
them,
timer.
but imagine everyone was like that.
Yeah, it would be a horrible place to live, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's normal. Like, no, we can't be all the same. Yeah, so
No.
it's fine.
No.
It's fine. So okay, so that sounds like a really fun game. But I'm now more curious about the music then. So first of all, tell me, who are these people? Who are the developers? So the game is finished. It's already in Kickstarter, so people are now receiving their copies. Kickstarter is like a place, ladies and gentlemen, where basically the public can finance your game if you're collecting people's money because they are supporting your game, and then they get the game, because it's much harder these days to, like, have your game published. You need to find a publisher, and they usually turn your game down, and they have their own people. If you I know this, I know all this, but anyway. So these guys, who are they? Are they your friends, or
No.
how
Yes, they are
okay.
now, but they weren't
Okay,
before.
so they contacted you to
No.
make.
Well,
Well, how did it happen then? How did it come about?
so okay. So
Stop.
basically, I was sort of in the board game wormhole and just kind of looking around, and these things
Yeah,
pop up sometimes, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
saw
yeah, yeah.
this image of this Gothic game, and the artwork, as you can see from the box, is just this kind of
Yeah.
um, comic booky theatrical Gothic artwork, and I immediately, I was like, what is this? And I realized that it had failed to be funded. um, in 2019. Something had happened, and it had gone to Kickstarter, and nobody, they hadn't backed it. People had backed it, but they didn't
Yeah.
get the funding it needed.
Yeah.
So, and I was really annoyed about this. I was just like, well, this is annoying. So I could really do with this game. And then I found that they were doing it again in 2021, and I found Black Letter Games. That's the company, and it's run by a guy called Chris Rees, who is from Wales. One of the most genuine people I've ever met. I mean that. He's just a lovely guy, and he really cares about what he's doing,
Yeah.
and not about money with him. It's just about I have a dream and I want to make it happen. You know, he
Yeah.
didn't give up. That was the thing that I really kind of magnetized me to it, was that he got back up and did it again. You know, and
Yeah.
put it back on Kickstarter. So I found him on Instagram and I messaged him. I said, look, I really believe in this game. I'll just look, for what it's worth, I'll just tell everyone I know that I think would be interested, and I'll
Yeah.
put a few ads on Facebook and Instagram. So I did. It wasn't, I probably didn't do anything, but it was just, you know, I think he
Yeah.
appreciated the support. It got funded, I think, God, it was like 20 minutes or something. It got funded so quickly. And then he was putting some ideas on one of the things about Kickstarter is they ask the backers, you know, what kind of things they want extra in the game and this sort of thing. And I
That
was
is what they call it, the reach goals, right? So when you reach
stretch goals.
stretch goals. So
Yeah.
you reach a certain number of backers, the people that
Yeah.
are backing the project, and the more people pledge the money, the more stretch goals you unlock. And
Yeah.
the stretch goals, those are like extra features that you're adding to the game. So it could be more cards, or I don't know, better quality of some components. And I think that's a lot of fun for the developers. Whenever I was making my game, I always dreamt of coming up with
it's
these
great.
things.
And this group of backers, I've done quite a few Kickstarters in my time, you know, and the backers are from all over the world, as you know.
Yeah.
This group, for some reason, it's like the nicest people all in one group. It's like the amount of support and patience, because there've been hiccups and, you know,
Yeah.
there's been production issues in China and things like that. They have been so nice and supportive, so that was great. But one of them, as we were sharing ideas, and I would say, "Oh, let's do this and let's do that," I got really, really into it, and then someone just said, it was so blunt. It was just, "This game needs a soundtrack," and and it just sort of hit me like a hammer. And I had that initial feeling in my stomach of like, you know, do I want to do this? Do I want to commit to this? Because I know I
Yeah.
can do it. If I really put my mind to it, I know I can do it. And my friends for years have been saying you should go into soundtrack work because you just, you know, you live and breathe it. So I got in contact and I said, Chris, what do you think? He was like, well,
that was already when they knew who you were, and you were already
yeah.
friends.
So we'd already
then.
just built up, just nothing particularly long or deep. It was just, you know, I'll just give you a hand and whatever. And I said, congratulations. When he got funded, I said, look, you must be really pleased, and I'm just so happy for you. And but anyway, I got in touch with him. I said, what do you think? This is what I do. This is so I went to my friend Guy, the producer, and I said, look, let's put together a mock-up of what it would sound like. So we had a kind of little bit of plinky plonky sort of eerie music with rain, and then we had this big bombastic chorus sung in Romanian. So it was a thing that I wrote. It was like something like "Come darkness, come go light. There's no escape. Your soul is ours now. There's no escape." It was something like that. And I got my friend who knows a Romanian guy to translate it and send it back, and then we sang it. My accent's probably terrible, so we made this kind of mock-up thing. This is what we can do, and we did it in a couple of nights. I gave it to Chris, and he was like, "All right, you've got it. You've got the contract." So,
Wow.
and that was a couple of years ago. So it's been a long and heavy. It's all I've been thinking. You know, just literally, it's been summer. I've had all these things, but in my head, I've been in this castle for 2 years.
Because it's this is like a dream kind of job, right? It's something you do because you love making music,
Yeah.
you love board games. So I completely understand you, man. Like
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing that I wish I could do with the Kingdoms of Deceit. That's a game I developed
I
for
remember you
5
telling me
years.
about it. Yeah.
I just you know, I had a lot of people playing it as well, but I was playing it on Tabletop Simulator. My problem is just I always like overdid it. I always too many mechanics, too many ideas. Like instead of making the
Very
base
easy.
game perfect, I started making expansions for the game, and I just did everything wrong. And also then there was a time when, you know, back in the day, Tabletop Simulator had a global chat. That was a place where you could find or recruit new people that would play. And we always needed new people. We had players that would play it for years, but you always needed some fresh blood or like fresh breath of fresh air, some new people that would sort of give you a different perspective, that would critique your game in a different way. Because everyone who who has been playing the game for a long time, everyone is blind. Everyone is blind, is unable to be unbiased. So then unfortunately, the global chat, which was like a place where you could just text anyone who was available to play any kind of board game, and you would just say, hey, I've got this game, do you want to try, do you want to play test my game? It used to be easy, but then they removed it because they had some issues with, I don't want to go into too much into it, but there's some
like abuse,
politically incorrect stuff happening, some kind of abuse, online abuse towards LGBT community. And as a result of that, they removed the chat because they didn't want to have to deal with it. Yeah, but nobody cared about people like me. That I got I got discouraged so much because I couldn't find the new people for the game. Basically, I didn't know where to look for them, and it was just a nightmare since then. So we kept playing for about another year or two. But it was never the same because always the same people. We got a little bit tired, and then I was like, what am I doing this for? But I wish I could go back to the game because it's just I spent 5 years of my life on it, and I think it's a good game. It's just I maybe didn't meet the right people who could even like push me, or maybe sometimes I'm unable to take criticism. It's one of my little things as well, because like you have to do that because you believe in yourself, in your project so much, and you're blind almost because you just don't accept any criticism anymore.
I get it. I do. I think I knew possibly your problem was the same as my problem, which is that I needed someone to help me. I mean, it's a mammoth undertaking, and you need, so it's something I've really made an effort to do this time. I've always been very, very private about my songwriting process or my musical process, not because I guard it jealously. I just don't really enjoy talking about it, and I don't like telling anyone about it till it's finished. But this time I sort of use 2 people or 3 people, and I play them the piece of music and say, what do you think, what's wrong with it? One of them, my wife just said, it sounds like James Bond, and I was like, oh god, she's right. I could have flown with that. I could have gone, this is the track, and then it would have just been a disaster. So I had to rewrite the whole thing, and she was right. And sometimes I've given tracks to Chris, the designer, and he's like, yeah, it's just not working for me. And of course he was right. I got to him, but it's so easy to get so involved in it and to get so passionate about it. You lose all kind of sense of distance and perspective.
Completely.
Yeah. So
sometimes what would help me, sorry to interrupt you, but sometimes what would help me is even like to take a break from the game, because we played every single game, every single day. Can you imagine? The game takes about 2 hours, and there was a game constantly for 3 years. Every single day there was a game. I was tired of the game, so I was usually just watching the people play on Tabletop Simulator. Right. But I was still involved. I was still like sort of, it's not that people were telling me a lot of things, so I was obviously making some adjustments as well. Like, it's not that I don't like listen to people. No, I'm not like that. But like, it's about listening to the right kind of people. Like some maybe people who know more than you. That's the
or
thing.
People who don't. So my wife is not a musician. She's musical, but she's not a musician, and so she's a great test subject because she doesn't know what she's no prejudice, no preconceptions, and she just says, "Oh, well, this is good."
But she's your wife as well, so that's also a bit.
No, she's brutally blunt.
But it's also different, right? It's kind of different as well. Like it's not
which is why I had a friend as well who is brutal, and he said too long or too short, and I was like, "Thank you, that's exactly what I need." So constant feedback was important.
So okay. So I guess we need to now play the sample, because you sent me 2 MP3s.
I did.
So thank you for that, and we can play it here. I don't know if we're gonna play the whole thing.
Which one is it?
Well, we can play both for sure. So I've got Rage and Retribution.
Yeah, do that one. That's more catchy. So if I can, you can play probably about half of it or something. Just there's a crescendo when it kicks in, so you'll know it when you hear it.
So let's play it first.
Oh yeah, go and then
let's play it first, and then we can talk. You can tell us more about it. I can tell you my sort of impression of amateur someone who doesn't understand this stuff, but like how it I can tell you how it makes me feel.
Sure.
All right, let's go. So that's it. Wow. What can I say? It's amazing, man. I'm really impressed. Oh, it's not finished yet, but I think we can stop here.
No, it's finished.
We could also play it as background music. How would that sound? Let's see.
You probably wouldn't be able to talk over it because it's quite.
I would have to make it. I can make it. I can make it quiet, but I don't know. I don't know if that's what we want to do. I guess we can do it a little bit. No.
There is another one we can play later that is more quiet.
Okay.
So that's it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm imagining some sort of epic battle. Basically, that's how it makes me feel, like some sort of epic battle of like huge armies, some fantasy setting, and
yeah. So one of the rules was with the game that it was going to be very claustrophobic. So that was one of the things. This track is not. There are, I think, 2 or 3 that broke the rule, because I think it needed something heroic. So in the game, you are playing villains.
Yeah,
you're playing bad people. You're playing like there's a kind of Jack the Ripper type. There's a sort of a mad Arab type. There's just all these different types of very, very bad people, and they're murderers and all that sort of thing. But I remember when I spoke to Chris, the first thing I said was that there needs to be something heroic there, because there's still people, and
it sounds like
you need something
to
root for, So, but it has to be a bit twisted. So
I can feel it there. I can feel like there's epic music. Like, again, I'm not an expert, but like I wrote a few notes. So it's like epic music. And to me, it sounds like there is a battle that is about to commence, as you
Yeah.
know, as you're building it up, and then it's sort of like maybe you're motivating the soldiers, like giving them the courage, or just somebody watching it as the fly on the wall or something. And it's a little bit sad as well at times. It gives me this feeling of like sadness. I don't know why.
This is it. So I said to him, what I wanted was there had to be an operatic sense of tragedy throughout the
Yeah,
whole thing. So you have this. So this is not new. I mean, if you look at The Godfather or something like that, they're horrible people doing horrible things, but there is this really beautiful melancholia around
yeah,
it. And Gothic is that. It's always this idea of, okay, they're bad, but why are they bad, and what could they have been? And the idea was to take something that was heroic, but just put a sinister twist on it, something
yeah.
evil. So with this one, we had these horns that were bam, so they slide up and down. It's like it's twisted. It's anger. It's bitter.
Yeah, well,
Um,
the name itself is what
I
is
think
it
it
called?
fits rage and
Yeah,
retribution. I think it
rage, and
fits.
so rage is obviously like a lot of anger, like
Yeah,
massive
yeah, yeah.
anger. Retribution is it's like it's kind of deserved punishment, like revenge. It's like a little bit like
Revenge. Yeah.
revenge as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
you get killed, but you hurt each other throughout the game, and you force
no,
players
no,
to
no.
do certain things. And
So hang on. So how does it work? So do you have an app that plays this music, or you just play it on YouTube or something?
no, so what happens is that people will be, because it is a first time publishing company. They, we talked about how we could recoup any cost, because it's,
Yeah,
I have spent or not worked in order to have time to do it. So we've lost, I've lost money, and so is Guy, and there's all kinds of cost.
yeah,
They couldn't pay us, so we said, right, well, let's just do it on the back end. So the soundtrack will exist anyway,
yeah.
because I wanted to do it, and we will ask backers or whoever wants to buy it on digital format.
Okay.
So what we did was, and what you have is you have the whole album. The game takes roughly an hour and a half to play, so we said, right, we'll do an hour and a half of music. Most soundtracks are probably less than that, actually, but ones, when you buy them, they're usually about 45 minutes. This is an hour and a half, 21 tracks. And it begins, it has an opening theme, like a kind of opening
Okay.
credits.
Build up. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't listen to when you're playing. It's just as
Do
you
you?
unbox.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you tell
And
people about the game. It
is
sets
it
the
like
scene.
when you are sort of, do you like choose your character or choose some attributes or
Yeah.
spells or
You
something?
choose
Is
your
that
characters. Yeah. It's
so?
preset
So do you have some
characters.
music for that, like something sort of
Yeah. So we've got, that's
milder?
called The Arrival. So you have the opening thing, which is called Carpathian Pass, which is the mountains and a carriage chase, which is a similar theme to Rage and Retribution. I repurposed
Hmm.
it. Arriving at the castle and the drawbridge comes up. There's all these sound effects and stuff. So the one that you heard there, there are two versions of the soundtrack. There's one with sound effects and one without, because we wanted one that you could play the game with and immerse yourself in the castle, and one that you just listen to, because I think it's worth listening to when you're not playing the game.
Yeah. But
So yeah,
does the game tell you when you should play
no,
which track, or you just listen to it as you play the game and it
no.
doesn't?
We thought about this. You
Yeah.
can if you want. So we made sure the tracks weren't crazy long. We actually split a lot of tracks up so that you could flip between them if you know the soundtrack well enough. Because this is what I do when I'm playing a game. I'm like, wait, hang on, I got the best perfect piece of music for this. I go and do this, and then we have this big epic
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is the option to do that. But what we ended up doing was we bookended it with an opening theme and a closing theme, and the closing theme is not what you would expect. And then it starts with it is a bit railroaded, because the game begins, you choose your characters and your rooms where you begin.
Mhm.
So we have music for that, the sound of a hall, and the sound of closing doors and things like
Yeah.
this. And then you choose your character, and it sounds of like knives being sharpened, and someone throws a knife into a wall, this sort of thing. And then as the game starts, you get this creepy door, and then you're in the castle. So we used a ton of sounds from the old
To be
Pinewood
honest,
vaults.
To be honest, it's kind of a little bit like there's this second track that you sent me, and it's a little bit like that. It's called Ambience 2. And
so this is called Stranger Staccato, yeah. So this is there's two.
Yeah.
So this was a longer track that we actually cut in half. I've sent you the longer one, but just play the first 3 minutes or something, and this pretty much gives you a feel.
I can also play like as background music, and we can talk a little bit over it. Sort of wind.
Yeah.
Steps. Somebody's walking towards you.
So the idea is that as you're playing and you move your piece, it might have this sound playing when you do it. It's this idea of serendipity, of this accidental, let's say you go into a room and then the door sound opens. You're like, oh my God, that matched. And it happens more than you think. And it's great when it does.
Squeaky door sound, yeah. And so like ambient music, basically. Yeah. So some kind of like surrounding sounds, and it's supposed to invoke this atmospheric mood, let's say.
So we had 50 minutes of this. They're all very different, but the idea of not overly intrusive.
It's going to turn it down a little bit. I have to turn it down.
So we wanted to keep it kind of not invasive. I mean, there are rises and falls in it, but this one particularly is quite sedate. But the idea of having ambient tracks, and then it interspersed with the big ones like the one we heard before, which is very bombastic. Yeah.
So
these are harder to write.
So does the game tell you in like there's some kind of sort of story I can imagine? So does the game give you some references to those tracks, or it's up to people to?
The tracks are inspired by what's in the castle, the kind of cards you have. Lots of steps, drips, thunder, lightning, doors being open and shut. There's voices that we did ourselves. There's lots of laughter. Just everything you would expect to hear in a
screams
castle.
As well, like some like screams of people being hurt, scared, or something like that.
Everything you can imagine has been put into it.
So it's a bit like horror,
like horror
mood.
Yeah.
Isn't it too scary for some people?
Some of it is. Some of the sounds we put in there are a little bit off-putting.
Do you have something to make up for it? Do you have something like to cheer you up, like when you go to a tavern or something to regain your strength?
Game?
Yeah, in the game, do you have something like more sort of? Nothing.
No,
it's all dark.
The only track that was a bit more sort of happy was a piano waltz that's sort of meant to be played by, because it's Dracula's castle, so he's there. And I played it to my wife, and she was like, "Doesn't fit. It's too happy." So I thought about this, and I'd recorded loads of torture sounds, so we just put that over the top. So it's this contrast of happy music with awful. It's a pretty violent game. I mean, it's just. This is
quite funny because I don't know what sort of impression, if people are listening to you for the first time. First of all, this is different from the music we played last time, which was like happy music. Second of all, you're an English teacher, so you I don't know you like this in a way, to be honest, but I think it's pretty cool. I love games, as you know, and the game itself sounds like fun. And I think this is professional. I'm not an expert, don't get me wrong, but it sounds like something I could imagine in a movie as well, easily. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's taken a lot of work. The one that we're listening to now that we've got in the background is they're harder to write actually, because there's no hook. Yeah, so when you do the big one, it's easy. It's like writing a song. It's just there's a big hook and there's a chorus and it builds and all this kind of thing. But these ones are like you need to let it breathe. So you need to know when to shut up. You need to know. So we did it. The discipline was only 3 things happening at once. So you'll hear there's like strings. There might be a little cymbal or something, and then some piano, but very sparse. So it doesn't, because I didn't want it to be exhausting for the players to have like audio exhaustion. That doesn't help. So,
but it's not. I'll tell you this: it's not the kind of thing I would listen to before going to bed. But at the same time, I probably usually do it. So because when I play games like Baldur's Gate 2 or Baldur's Gate 3 now, it's an amazing game. So I mean, I do exactly that. But I'm sure people would tell you, like professionals would tell you, don't do this. But anyway, it's
not a particularly
yeah.
happy place
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be. I had to listen to a
you get,
ton of horror music to
gonna-
prepare for it.
I can imagine. Did you have nightmares?
I had. Have you ever seen The Shining? I was listening to the Shining soundtrack. That's probably the greatest horror soundtrack ever written.
Mm.
It was just, man, that is just,
Yeah.
it's tough. You can't shake it off. So
You could, I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. Like I wouldn't be able to. Maybe I would fall asleep, but then I would wake up at night. It's just it would haunt me. It would haunt me at night. Like something would remind me of that, like during my sleep.
Yeah, it's taken. So I think the scariest period for horror was the 70s. So
Yeah.
this music is very much inspired by that period. I don't think 80s horror is particularly scary. I think 90s horror was ironic. Oh, this is the screams. You can hear there.
Shall I turn it up a little bit?
Yeah, whack it up. Yeah. So it's exactly. So even in the ambience track, there's.
Wait, I will turn it down.
So even in tracks like that, there's still high points and louder, scary bits because it can't just be flat forever. So that took a lot of work and making sure there was enough to keep players interested, but also not to detract from the game so much as well. So.
No, I can imagine like this would totally improve the game, and I have played some games with a soundtrack already. So Mysterium, there's a game called Mysterium.
Yeah, the soundtrack is good.
Which has a soundtrack. Then there's called Escape from the Temple or something like that. Basically, it's an escape game. I can't remember, the Curse of the Temple or something like that. And that you need that soundtrack because it's you have a time limit to escape.
Yeah.
And it only takes 10 minutes, and so without the soundtrack you can't play the game. So there's an app, or you watch it, you listen to it on YouTube. So there are games with a soundtrack, but I think still most of the games don't have a soundtrack. So I think this is pretty cool.
It's a pretty new area to work in. It's exciting for that as well, and also I think Mysterium is a very good soundtrack, but it's 10 minutes looped 10 times.
I can't remember that even. It's a very good game, by the way. Very good game.
It's good. We played it once. My wife didn't like it. I thought it was all right, but
there are always people. There are always some people who don't like it. Always. I think I don't know why people love Dixit so much. It's just this game completely killed it for me. It's so much better. There's so much more to it, and yet it's similar in a way. You still have those dreamy images, and there's like especially if you're the ghost. Oh, it's the best experience ever.
Yeah. I mean, so we have when we were doing the soundtrack, Chris was like, "Oh, so you're going to loop stuff?" And I was like, "We're not going to loop anything. I didn't want anything to be repeated. So everything that you hear has been recorded like just once." So that was really important that it was all individual, and
so much work must have gone into it then. So is that so now so this is your first ever soundtrack of this kind, I suppose, right? Yeah. So now that like this sounds great, I imagine the other tracks are no worse than these. So does it mean like you have now developed this new skill? Are you planning to expand? And do some more.
I would love to do more board games. I mean, I did actually get in contact with a company, but they were saying money was an issue and and that's fine. But I think it depends. We're going to see how this goes because I don't really want to sell the game. I would much rather just have a flat fee and whatever. But that's just the way it's turned out. So we're hoping that people will buy it. If anything, just to support us. So
what's the best way to contact you? Where can we contact you then?
You can contact us at theforge@gmail.com. So it's THEFORDJ @gmail.com. or just go to our website, which is theforge.com.
Yeah,
And
that would probably be the best. Yeah. And then
there's a
they will
little,
they'll find your email there as well.
yeah.
Okay,
They
so I'm
can
putting it
contact
on
us there.
screen for the YouTube people. This is the website, thefordj.com.
Forge. So the
Yeah.
name is it's from the guy. The house he lives in was an old forge where they made metal. Buckles and things like
Forge.
that.
So,
Yeah.
but it's not spelled that way, because forge is
No.
spelled with G
Yeah.
E, right? So
we wanted to do it, and we wanted something a little Nordic. So it's like the word fjord, but with the J
right.
moved around. It was something, I don't know. I just felt like there was never any question in my mind as to whether it was the right name or not. However, I've realized since then, but loads of board game companies are all something forged, steam forged, or river forged, or like word forge games, or forge or whatever, which is quite irritating.
I'll tell you something. I also have a blacksmith in my game. One of the characters, I couldn't.
Oh,
It's
really?
just such a. I don't know. It's forging is
You
such a
need
nice theme or mechanic or whatnot.
about your game. I would definitely partner up with someone who has a vision to deadline, and then maybe get it to production. Totally possible.
Yeah, I mean,
But you need a
so
partner. This is just whenever you're doing something like this, especially if you're creative, because we're not smart people. We're sort of scattered around, and we've got good
thanks,
ideas but bad.
Jack.
Well, I'm one. But good ideas, bad implementation. So it's
Yeah,
you got
no,
to
you're
have
right.
someone
Yeah.
there to keep you disciplined. So no.
Yeah, because like people read books about this. People study board game design at university. People know what to do. Like these companies, they produce excellent games. We might have amazing ideas, innovative. It's different. That's why a lot of people played the game, because it was different. I said
Yeah.
they could feel that I did it just from my heart. It was
Yeah.
it was like that. I wasn't making it for profit. I was making it because I was enjoying myself, and everybody could feel it. That's why they loved it. But yet, it wouldn't make the masses, right? That's the problem. It wouldn't get to the masses.
You might be surprised, but well,
I
I
mean,
hope. I mean, it does see some form of
thank you. But
release.
anyway, this obviously this episode is about you. So theforge.com, but not forge spelled GE, but for DJ.
Yeah, so FORDJ, yeah, is the
Yeah.
spelling, the Forge, yeah.
So that's where you can learn about not only the game, but also your soundtrack, I suppose.
Yeah, and what the ethos behind it, why we did it, and why there's two different versions, or three different versions actually, one with sound effects, one without, and then the deluxe, which is like everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's been a
is
lot of
this?
work.
So you said that the game is going to come into retail at some point.
Yeah.
It's planned, and the soundtrack, people can already buy that, I suppose.
No, it's being released at the beginning of October. We've just got to iron out there's a few mixing issues.
Okay.
It's such a beast, like, because you it's not only the music but the sound design. So, for example, if you've got like a scream that's too loud, it's just annoying, and things can't be too quiet, and they've got to be exactly the right pitch. There's tons. It is a logistical beast to wrestle with. Yeah.
Polishing it, fine tuning it,
and it has to be perfect. So you only do this once. So after 2 years of work, I want it to be just right.
Fantastic. And by the way, this is still your Instagram, yeah? Lucid Jack.
No. So we were actually at the Forge soundtrack team. So it is, yeah. You can contact me there, but for this project, it is the Forge soundtrack team.
So this is
our Instagram.
This is Jack's Instagram, but specifically for the soundtrack and the game, there's another one, and that's this one, ladies and gentlemen, the Forge soundtrack team on Instagram. Okay, lovely. Now this has been wonderful, Jack. Like, for a lot of reasons. First of all, I'm really happy to finally catch up with you again.
Always good to see you too.
You're like my soulmate when it comes to board games. English. No, really, because English teacher who loves board games so much, you don't
No.
get to meet. You don't get to meet so many. So
I think it's picked up. The normal people now are playing more
but
board games than they did
I
after
know
COVID, and
I know a few, but like when I say love board games, I mean they're crazy about board games. I know you
to
are.
the
So
to the sort of slightly worrying levels.
degree, because like
Yeah.
buying games and like wasting money on games.
Oh god, it's a money sink. It's an absolute money sink. But you just
It is,
it's just
and
one of
it
those
also
things.
lasts forever. Like that game, you will have it on your shelf forever unless you sell it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, no,
It's
never. Not this one. This one is it's just so well designed. I mean, I was playing it and I was like, this is just brilliant. Like, and I know I'm biased and everything,
so
but it's just great.
so before, just a last question, before when it was in development, the game,
Mm.
when people were playtesting it, you were not part of that playtesting group, or were
No,
you
I did
involved?
play tested it twice.
You did. So, but was that like on
Yeah,
tabletop simulator, or was that like
yeah, it was. It was
makeshift
on.
copy or something?
I think it was tabletop simulator. Which is, I find it's a nightmare for me anyway. I can't do the whole moving the thing. I find it very confusing. But I was
Learning curve. You will get into it once you start playing more and more and more. It's
uh,
I know what you mean. A lot of people are telling me this, but it's not the worst, man. It's not the
no,
worst.
it's not. But I think with board games as well, like it's like book versus Kindle, right? They did research into this. They did research into this, and they said that you will remember something more if it's in a book or something physical than if it's on a screen.
No,
And the reason is
I agree with you.
it's the tactility of it, it's the texture of the book, it's the smell of the book, it's the weight of the book. And I
I,
feel the same way about board games. Like I like the texture of the board, the components, how they feel when you
yeah.
move them around, the design and all this kind of thing. So I always feel a bit weird, like I'm playing it on computer.
It's like having a long distance relationship over Skype, yeah, or like trying to have
Well, I've
sex
done that too. It's tough.
online. Who hasn't done that? Trying to have sex online or VR or something, and like it's a little bit like that. Let's be honest, yeah. So,
it's very diluted.
yeah.
So yeah, it's not. If I was desperate, I would do it, but I'm one of these people who'd far rather pay the money and have the physical
I
thing in
completely
my
get it. Like
hands.
it's about touching the components and rolling the dice, and you can all do all of this online, but it's just never gonna be the same. However, you can get to play with people who live far away from you, even in different time zones sometimes. So it's not all bad. I'm not against tabletop simulator. I spent a good portion of my life
Definitely not against it,
playing
but
games, developing my game there. But I understand where you're coming from as well.
yeah.
I absolutely do. But anyway, Jack, thank you very much for this. It's been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. I wish you all the best with this.
Thank you.
Hopefully, this is not the last time we hear about you, about the project, about your endeavors in the
Yeah,
sphere of soundtracks as well, board gaming soundtracks. And yeah,
we hope. Thanks, Zdenek. You take care.
you're welcome, mate.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Take care, listeners. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.